December 1952. In the heart of London, a person steps out onto the street, looks down, and cannot see their own feet. The largest city in Europe has vanished under a mass of air so thick that buses crawl forward guided by a man walking ahead on foot, carrying a torch. And here's the question that will haunt us over the next few minutes. How could a simple fog kill 12,000 people in 5 days? And almost no one notice while it was happening? Because that's the truly chilling part. There was no explosion, no poison spilled. People breathed the same air they always had, went about their lives, and thousands began to die without knowing why. And the strangest part of all, the real death toll took 50 years to come to light. Let's take this step by step. London, the early 1950s. A city that ran entirely on coal. In 1952, Britain ran on coal. Homes burned it for heat, factories burned it for power, and the Bankside and Battersea stations, both in the middle of the city, burned it around the clock. Thick fogs were nothing new there. Londoners even had names for them. The London particular, brown like a certain Madeira wine, or the pea souper, tinged the greenish color of pea soup. They lived with them every winter. So when the morning of December 5th arrived, no one was alarmed. When the sun came up on Friday, December 5th, 1952, Londoners went about their business as usual. But as the day wore on, the fog grew thicker. And here's the first piece that doesn't fit. Because what was forming over the city was not the usual weather. It was a trap. Listen to this. That winter had been exceptionally cold. The weather in November and early December 1952 had been bitter, with heavy snowfalls, so to keep warm the people of London were burning enormous amounts of coal in their homes. Millions of chimneys pouring out smoke all at once. Normally that smoke rises and the wind carries it away. But that week there was no wind. A spell of unusual cold, combined with a high-pressure system and windless conditions, trapped the air pollutants, mostly from burning coal, and built a dense layer of smog over the city. An anticyclone. That's the key word. Under a high-pressure system, the air goes still and a temperature inversion forms. A layer of warm air pins the cold air beneath it, sealing a lid over the city. Picture it. An invisible cap closing London off from above. The smoke from millions of fires now has nowhere to escape. And down there, trapped, it begins to mix with the fog off the Thames and turn into something far worse. Because it wasn't just smoke, it was smoke that reacted chemically. The smoke mixed with the natural fog off the Thames, reacted with the sulfur dioxide from the coal and became something far more dangerous. A dense, acidic smog laced with droplets of sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid. Floating. In the air, people were pulling into their lungs with every breath. And still no one knew what was happening. As night fell, the city ground to a halt. When darkness came, the fog thickened and visibility dropped to just a few meters. And it didn't get better. The next day, the sun sat too low in the sky to burn the fog away, and that night, and Sunday and Monday, the fog thickened again. Wait, because what comes next sounds almost impossible. By nightfall, the smog was so thick that people couldn't see their own feet. Buses stopped running because drivers couldn't see past the hood. Film screenings were cancelled when audiences could no longer make out the screen. And people indoors watched the fog seep in through their closed windows. Let that sink in. The fog was getting into houses, through the cracks, under the doors. The smog even crept into homes, slipping through gaps and beneath doorways. There was no refuge. Not outside, not inside. And here comes the detail that unsettles me most in this whole story. With the city half blind, how did a sick person reach the hospital? Often, they didn't. Apart from the underground, transport was severely restricted, ambulance services were crippled, and people were left to fend for themselves trying to reach hospitals through the smog. But pay attention, because here's the real mystery of this episode. During those 5 days, most Londoners didn't feel like they were living through a deadly disaster. It was an annoying fog, yes. A dirty one, yes. But deadly? At the time, people didn't realize how toxic the air was because they were so used to smog. That is the silent horror of this story. Death didn't arrive with a scream. It came slowly, disguised as an ordinary winter. And what was uncovered afterward turned out to be even stranger than anyone imagined at the time. On December 9th, as fast as it had come, the smog lifted. It lasted from Friday, December 5th to Tuesday, December 9th, 1952, and dispersed quickly when the weather changed. The wind shifted and the invisible lid was gone. End of the weather event. But not the end of the dying. Not by a long way. When officials started counting, the official figure was one number. When researchers finished counting, decades later, it was something else entirely. And that difference is the heart of our mystery. How do you count the dead of a fog? There are no bullets, no wounds. What the statisticians did was compare how many people died on those days, against how many usually died on the same dates in previous years. And the jump was brutal. The chief medical statistician declared it a catastrophe of the first order, saying that for a few days, the death rates reached a level matched only on rare occasions in the past century, like the peak of the 1854 cholera epidemic and the influenza pandemic of 1918 to 1919. Cholera, the Spanish flu, that was the scale of the death toll, caused by the air. The government gave an initial figure. When the smog finally cleared on December 9th, the official estimate of deaths was around 4,000. 4,000 people, a staggering number on its own. But this is where the story takes its most disturbing turn, because 4,000 turned out to be nowhere near the truth. People kept dying for weeks and months afterward. Respiratory infections, bronchitis, pneumonias that would not let their victims go. And it took decades for anyone to put all the pieces together. It took years of independent analysis by researchers like Dr. Peter Brimblecombe to establish that the real figure was closer to 12,000, with some estimates even higher. 12,000 dead, 3 times the official count, and on top of them, another 100,000 people fell seriously ill. Not even the animals were spared. There's one detail that captures exactly how toxic that air was. A report shows that several cattle brought to the Smithfield show at Earl's Court between December 8th and 12th suffered acute respiratory symptoms. Around 160 needed veterinary care, and 12 had to be put down. Cows choking to death on the air of a livestock show. So let's come back to our question. How did 12,000 people die without anyone seeing it coming? The answer is both simple and terrifying. Because there was nothing to see. The killer was invisible, silent and familiar. It was the smoke from their own chimneys. The same smoke they'd breathed all their lives, only this time the sky handed it back multiplied and turned to acid. And the response wasn't immediate either. You'd think 12,000 deaths would change a country overnight. It didn't. The public outrage was real, but it took 4 years to produce legislation, while Harold Macmillan, then Minister of Housing, wrote in private that the smog was really serious, even as he insisted in public that action wasn't yet needed. In the end, the law did come. In response to the killer fog, the British government finally passed the Clean Air Act 4 years later in 1956, establishing smoke-free zones and restricting the burning of coal. And here's perhaps the most chilling detail to end on. Even today, the tragedy is barely remembered. There are no monuments in London, no day of commemoration. 12,000 people, killed by the air of their own city, in 5 days, without a single plaque to remember them.